Greetings, everyone. I hope you all are having a great new year, and I wish you all love and peace and joy. Alright, so to start off this video, I want to introduce you guys to this book. Yes, this book is amazing. It was written by Dr. Laila Africa, and it's called African Holistic Health. And let me just read the back just to give you a little information about it. African Holistic Health was written by Dr. Laila Africa. It's the first major book which addresses health issues from a comprehensive African-centered viewpoint. So, it talks about the health of the African person because we are built differently than Europeans and Asians and Indians. Our physical, genetics, everything is different than other race. You cannot say each race has the same functions, has the same looks, has the same everything, because we don't. And also not the same skin color. As you can clearly see, I'm black and I'm not. And you just can't say a black person is Asian because we're not. Or you can't say a black person's white because they're not. So that's why you cannot compare races. Even though they say we are equal, we're not really equal, basically. Just to point that out. And it says here also, it provides a complete guide for herbal remedies along with homeopathic disease treatments. So it's saying here, which I read in the book, but I'm just explaining. It's saying that, herbal remedies, like it gives all these it gives a guideline of herbs that we can use to help cure ourselves, sorry, for whatever we have, for whatever sickness we have, because there's a lot of herbs. There's plenty of different type of plants that we can use to help ourselves and to heal ourselves. Some people don't think plants can heal us, but they can. This is why they're on the earth. They're not only on the earth to look there and just to sit pretty, they're here to help us, basically, and to help us, be more healthy and everything. And also, he gives, and also when it says with homeopathic disease, it helps with any type of disease you have, like diabetes, all these things, just to help, cure it with herbs and everything. What makes African holistic health truly unique is the research Dr. Africa has provided on psychological and physiological differences between people of African descent versus people of European descent. So as I was saying, the races are not the same. So it's saying here, people, it just has research about Africans and how they are built up differently from Europeans, and how we do things different, how we think different, how we breathe different, everything different. And also, in addition, Dr. Africa provides a complete history from the 19th century to the 18th century of European herb trade and why Europe invaded Africa for healing plants. So, and finally, he concludes by detailing how European diseases defeated ancient Africa. So, before the Europeans came into Africa, they all lived in caves, and it is true, they lived in caves because they still do have the caves up to this day in Europe, in those different areas of where those cavemen people used to live. And the thing is, they didn't really have enough resources because they lived, they're in the north and it's cold, and they don't really have enough plant resources, nothing like that. So they needed something, in order to help their civilization grow and to be healthy. So this is why they came to Africa and invaded, and they also stole us Africans, our ancestors, from Africa, and also used us for slavery, which I don't know who in their right mind, but this is reality. I don't know. In my thinking, and this is just my opinion in general, for me, as being a human, and I see another human, I don't think I have the heart in order to use that person and to make them a slave and to just keep putting them down, mentally, physically, and everything. And I don't think I would have the heart to do that. This is why, I don't know, I guess they had the heart to do it, so this is what the Europeans did to us. They just wanted, more food resources because they didn't really have it there. And in order to do that, they needed to steal from us and they needed to use us, which was devastating. And also they brought over their diseases, which didn't really help also in Africa because it made a lot of our African ancestors sick when they came over. Remember, if you're living in a cave, you're just like, you're limited for all these resources basically, and you don't really have, all the resources to provide you, food wise, and it's like a survival of the fittest, so you have to make sure you survive. That's why, you know, they have that, they have that thinking of, stealing from each other because they always used to be stealing from each other in order to survive. That's a caveman mentality and everything. So that's just a little thing I have to say. And just to say this, I'm still learning about these things, so I'm not 100% in all of these things, but I'm glad that I'm learning this, and I'm glad I'm still alive to learn this so I can teach this to my children, because this is what we're supposed to know. This is what we should know, but, after it's been years, as it passed on years and years, some of us don't really go back into what we should really be doing and with our lives and everything when it comes to being healthy and, just living a healthy lifestyle. Just to say that. So just to say this, just to give a little thing of just of what he talked about in the book. He talks about, meat, he talks about pork, chicken, all these foods that we eat, and we don't realize what's it really doing to our body and everything. And it's really, I like how this book just brings out, the truth about, what we really put in our bodies, because it's important to know. And yeah. It also talks about fast food, and what we should, and how we should exercise, or if we don't exercise and if we keep putting this in our body, we end up dying, basically. So he talks about cheeseburgers, sodas, sports drinks, French fries, you name it, all, the unhealthy stuff, potato chips, pork skins. First of all, you're not even supposed to be eating pork, because it's just you're not supposed to be eating pork, so I don't even know. I learned this, that you're not supposed to be eating pork, and after when I learned this, I don't really eat pork anymore. So I'm still learning all these things, but I'm just glad to share it with you guys, so at least you would know. And if you're interested in knowing more about these things and studying upon these things, get this book. He has other books too that talks about melanin, black people's melanin, and how we are built differently and everything, skin wise, and how we function differently. It talks about, are you eating food or drugs? So he talks about all this stuff. you know he talks about the products that we use also for our hair, and this could be for also any product also, like for example, he talks about saying that cosmetics and personal care products are usually made with harmful synthetic chemicals. The chemicals are absorbed into the skin and get into the blood. What you put on your skin, you are eating. You eat your cosmetic. The following list is just a few of many dangerous actions of chemicals used to improve skin beauty. So he's saying that, basically once you put lotion on your skin absorbs all that. And sometimes what your skin is absorbing, it wouldn't be good because the products that they use in that lotion, which is harmful for our bodies and our skin, which is harmful for our skin, that, it would like affect us, in a bad way. So he gives all the chemicals that they put. He lists all these chemicals that, explains what they usually do and why it's not for our bodies. So I should say, for example, which is animal fat, which is tallow, and it says here oily solids are or semi-solids that are water, insoluble esters of glycerol with fatty acids. The oil causes the skin to feel slippery and smooth. It does not make the skin smooth or soft. It can breed bacteria, so it makes bacteria. So basically, animal fats, tallow makes bacteria. It doesn't really help the skin out. Even though it has a smooth feeling to it, it still doesn't make your skin healthy as it is. It makes more bacteria. Whew, my mouth. Glycerine, fragrances. Just a good way to know if you're buying the right natural products. Before you buy something, you make sure you look at the ingredients, what it has behind it. Because usually people don't usually read ingredients. They usually just go and buy it, and they don't really care about what it does to them. They just buy it. Instead of wasting your money and buying all these expensive products, make sure you read what it has, because the least expensive products are the ones that are more natural, and it affects you better than the ones that you buy that doesn't really affect you good. So that's just one little tip, just to read ingredients also, and look up the ingredients, like look up the chemicals of each chemical, what they use in the ingredients to make that product, because once you look it up, it gives you like the true information about what they use to put in that product, what you're buying. And he talks about vitamins and minerals. This is why I love the book, and I'm grateful for Dr. Laila Africa, because he's the best, and I just love him so much. Thank God for him, because Lord knows. He gives herbs also, how to prepare your own herbs, so you can help your own self. I love it. Love this book. So basically, this is just things. He also provides pictures, because we do love pictures a lot. I love pictures, so he gives pictures, and he gives like a grip. He just gives like a picture and he labels it and everything. That's what I love also. I just love to see pictures. And also he talks about smoking and children. He talks about violence and children and children, beating, hitting, spanking. This is talking about beating kids and how harmful it is to beat kids, and because it affects them mentally, and it gives them like, you know, it just teaches them, you know, to be violent and everything, which it's not supposed to be that way. He speaks about all of this. That's what I love. It's just, I love how he does just suggest, like, just talks about all these things. And he, Dr. Laila Africa, doesn't just write these things. He studied these things, so it's not like he just got it out of his head. He just studied these things. And he studied these things from learning from Africans, going back into Africa and learning all these, you know, things that we're supposed to know. All, you know, it's just like outstanding to me. That's why I'm like speechless, because I just love how he goes back and learns about our African history and everything. So that's what I love. He talks about white racism, addiction, and everything. Yeah, he just goes through everything. So, just to say this, I'm gonna read violence and children beating, hitting, and spanking children. So it says here, acts of physical violence against African children is a Caucasian socially engineered behavior, which is called seasoning. So basically what he meant by seasoning is, like, you know, a black person, we have our own culture, but since if we don't know our own culture, we just, you know, it's just like we, like, you know, follow the Caucasian culture, and it's seasoning us because it's like teaching us, you know, we're learning about their culture, which is not really good, because to learn a Caucasian culture is different than learning about an African culture. And if you don't know your culture, then that means you don't know who you are, basically, because you need to know your culture to know who you are. So that's what he talks about also. And it says here, beatings teach the child that violence is the solution to problems. Beating a child should have a relationship to Ma'at. Beating should not connect. Beating should connect the child to Ma'at. Beating a child is usually done in the same way as Caucasians. Beatings connect the child to Caucasian culture. Beating usually imitates the slave and slave master's relationship. So what he means by this is, you know how the slave masters used to beat, you know, the slaves and everything? It's saying that how parents are the slave masters and the kids are the slaves, and they're beating them. And this is all Caucasians' culture. And basically our ancestors were going through all this stuff, and like, you know, after a while, you know, some of them began to think, you know, this was normal, and it's not normal because it's Caucasian culture and it's violent, and you don't, you know, solve a problem by violence. You know, you fix it by, you know, acknowledging it, and you try to, like, you know, talk about it and everything. You don't really beat the child, because it's just it builds a fear in them also, which is not really a good fear. And it's not really good, you know. Also, the adult is a slave, and it says here, beating usually I'm going back. It says beating usually imitates the slave and the slave master's relationship. The adult is the slave master, as I was saying, and the child is the slave. If the beating does not define Ma, do not do it. So yeah, if it does not define mod, like if you're beating a kid and it does not really, if you're beating a kid and, you know, physically and everything, it doesn't really define ma'at. You know, it should be a different way. It should be, you know, punishing them, but in a different way instead of beating them. And he also gives solution also, because some people say also, for example, one of the popular excuses for beating a child is saying to spare the rod and to and spoil the child. And basically the rod is misinterpreted, as he says here. The rod is supposed to guide the child, it's not supposed to beat the child. Just like how you use the rod to guide the sheeps, you know, you don't really beat them with it, you guide them with it. That's what you do. So you shouldn't really be beating the child, you should be guiding them. The rod is a symbolic way of guiding them, fixing their mistakes, helping them, solve that problem, and helping them, just to be better as a human being, not as beating them and putting them down and making them feel like they're worth nothing. Because remember, once you make a child, they are you, they're part of you, they're made of you, and you shouldn't be putting that down, because it affects them. And if when it affects them, it affects you, and it affects the father also. So this is just a little thing I wanted to say. Just a little thing I wanted to explain about. So this is just how I just love how he explains all these things, Yeah. And I'm ending off this video, but I just want to say is, please, please take it upon yourselves to learn about this. Watch his videos. Go look up Doctor. You don't even have to spell his name properly, because I know probably some of you guys wouldn't maybe know how to, spell his name. It's Dr. Laila Africa. Look up his videos. If you're really that interested in it, I advise you to, because this is to help you greatly. This is not just for money making. This is for you to go back, us African people, to go back into what we're supposed to be doing, instead of following the lifestyle, what is not supposed to be, by eating junk food and everything. Because back in Africa, they didn't really have all these, you clearly see they didn't have all these junk food, and they didn't really have McDonald's, I should be saying. They didn't have Burger King, blah blah blah. And then it came to be now, here in America, they have all these type of, restaurants in the food industry. The food industry doesn't really care about our health, they only care about our money. So they don't really care how much money you spend on whatever, on McDonald's, on Chinese food, and they don't really care about none of that. They only care about what they have in their hands, and it's called money. That's just how it is. That's the awful truth. Also, I forgot to say, he talks about black genocide, and a little information about black genocide. Black genocide is racism, basically, of the white people. They created a way for us black people to not produce ourselves, not to reproduce ourselves. So it's just to stop, us African women, from not having kids, because they don't really want our kind to produce anymore, and they think that if we keep producing our kind, that we will overthrow them. That's black genocide, and he talks about black genocide in this book. If you guys know about black genocide, you may know what I'm talking about, and it's a very sick-minded, thinking of what they think about us black people. And it's really, to look up on the history about it, about black genocide. It was really, it just really was, I was speechless when I saw, what they've done. Because I watched the documentary also. So if you want to know about black genocide, watch Black Genocide documentary on YouTube, and you would know what I'm talking about. It talks about all that, and he also writes it in his book. You know it's in here. Ooh. It has to be in here. Yes, it's in here. I know it is in here because I know I read about it. And yeah. If I can't find it, then I'll make another video about that. Yeah, I'm not sure I have it here. I know you had it in here somewhere. Oh. Okay. Wait. Juggle Europeans. No, it's intro. Scientific method of diet. No. Science misguided. No. Yes, it's somewhere here. Yeah. Yeah, I can't really find it right now because it's a lot of pages. I should have highlighted the page, but it's in here, and yeah. Thank you. I hope you guys really like this video, and I hope it's very informational. I hope you guys actually learn a little bit of something of what I said in this video, and I hope you guys take it upon yourselves to, you know, research on these things and to actually, you know, help yourselves. Hope you guys have a good day or night, and I wish you all love.